they asked me to give you a view of the Silicon Valley, but I spent most of my summer in Europe. So I'll give you a Silicon Valley point of view based on my trip to Europe. It was fabulous. I met 5 heads of state, prime ministers, and I don't know what they're all called in Europe, kings, whatever. And I got a chance. I went to 7 different conferences in about 13 or 14 different countries, and really got a good feel for Europe. My overall view is that the refugees are a godsend for Europe. You want young, dynamic people in your countries, and you want those people so that you can educate them and get them into your economy. That was number one. Number two, well, I'll hit you with these things, and then I'll kind of go off on my rants. But here were 3 words I'd get out of your vocabulary if you're European. One is impossible, so I'd get rid of that word. I heard it a lot, and I never hear it here in the Silicon Valley. And I thought, yeah, I remember that word back from when I was a little kid, but I don't remember it now, and I don't think it's a good word. The second one is humble. I get humble out of your vocabulary. I think that was something that has happened throughout Europe, and I think you need to be more bold. I think Europeans have all the brain power that you could ever imagine in a continent. And they can really do extraordinary things with that brain power. And I think that this is, I'd get rid of humble. The third is words like realistic, because those are the words that take everybody down. It's like, let's be realistic. Oh no, let's be rational here. You need people who are going, hey, I got an idea. I heard there was a planet on Alpha Centauri. Let's go there. Let's go do something weird. And then have people go, yeah, and then we'll do this. Instead of, let's be realistic. Let's just see if we can fix things right here at home. You fix things at home by shooting for the stars. Things get better when you shoot for the stars. And that's true. I've seen that all throughout Silicon Valley. So my mission in life has been to spread entrepreneurship and venture capital throughout the world. And it seems to have happened. I don't know whether it was me. It was probably all these other people. But that was what my mission in life was. And now I see that it has already started to happen. Entrepreneurship is happening. Venture capital is happening. And now I'm looking to, here in the Silicon Valley, to create an ecosystem that other people can copy and spread that throughout the world. So I want to go all the way back, not just venture capital entrepreneurship, but I want to go back to how do you educate people? How do you get them moving in the right direction? How do you get them thinking about the future instead of the past? How do you get them to think in terms of let's blow up these buildings and put something better there? How do you get them thinking what's going to happen 15 years from now? 15 years from now, here's my picture of the world. We are going to be in flying self-driving cars. Anything will arrive within an hour that you need. You'll probably be able to live an extra 50 or 100 years because of whatever it is, fetal cell transplants or whatever it is. The world's going to be a lot different, but I want everyone to be thinking, what's going to happen 15 years from now? And then what's it going to look like? And then what are the entrepreneurs going to be like? And that's the entrepreneur you want to be. Not the one that's like 6 months ahead or a year ahead. If you're 6 months or a year ahead, the powers that be, the establishment, will just crush you. We had that happen at Theranos. although Theranos was 15 years ahead, but they crushed them very early. I'll tell you the Theranos story. I backed a 19-year-old woman, and she said, I'm going to change healthcare as we know it. There's so many things wrong with healthcare, and I'm going to change it as we know it. And I said, terrific. She said, I'm going to drop out of Stanford. And I said, really? Drop out of Stanford? Yes, I'm dropping out of Stanford, and I'm going to change everything about healthcare. And so then 10 years later, she came up with this. Well, she came up with it a long time before that. These 2 drops of blood that goes into a microfluidic chamber and runs 50 blood tests for you. So imagine the gallons of blood she is saving for you. Well, now the thing works, and it tests your blood, and you can test your blood. You can test your blood now, and you can test your blood in 6 months and in a year, and you can see how your blood is changing over that time. Well, of course, she has some competitors who are not happy with this because they're taking pints and pints of your blood, and they're running tests on them, and they're much more expensive, and they got big businesses built on those. But it's not just the competitors. So she's figured this all out. So who's going after her? Well, the doctors don't like it particularly well because you're taking control of your health care. The insurance companies don't like it. It's going to lower the cost of insurance. The drug companies don't like it. You're going to know what drugs to take, so they're not going to be able to flood you with drugs. This changes everything. So they somehow get a Wall Street Journal reporter to pound on her, and then they get the government looks and says, oh my God, these articles keep coming. I'm getting pressure. I'm going to have to go check this out. And so the FDA needs to go check this out, and then they start, and if the FDA is going to go check you out, they're going to make sure they find something wrong. There are real problems, real issues with having a major breakthrough product. If you're an entrepreneur, you have a major breakthrough product, you're going to be facing a lot of different incumbents that don't like what you're doing. But I want you Europeans to encourage those entrepreneurs and to fight back against those incumbents. Because what I back are those entrepreneurs that will take long odds at an extraordinary outcome. They'll go after those industries where you're getting bad service for a high cost. So what industries might those be? I don't know, anybody? Cable industry, the drug companies, I don't know, the electric companies, education. They've all gotten pretty set in their ways, and they don't really want to change. Paris. Paris doesn't want to change. They got a beautiful place that was beautiful in the 1800s, and they just don't want it to change at all. I think you need to think in terms of how do you change what won't change? How are you going to make those impacts on things that won't change? So what's the biggest industry that needs changing, that gives the worst service for the highest cost? Come on, some of you work for it. Yeah, government. Okay, so the government is the new opportunity for an entrepreneur. Because, first of all, governments can be way more efficient. They can be way more effective. They can have much better data. They can drive a program much easier through a population than they ever could before. Computers have allowed this to be the case. The blockchain is the perfect government official. It's fair, it's honest, it treats everybody exactly the same. It's cheap, very efficient. This is a better way to govern. It's more of an honest way of governing. Juries can be operated through the internet. They don't need to force juries to all sort of be in one place at one time. Things are going to change. And what does that mean? That means governments have to compete for people. Governments have to compete for the businesses and the money and the people. And I saw that through Europe as I went from one to the next. Each prime minister was saying, well, how do we get more of your money? And how do we get more of those entrepreneurs? And how do we get more people to our country? And in Europe, they're all so close together, you can easily move from one country to another. And so some of those prime ministers are saying, we're having an exodus from our country because nobody wants to be here because we have not created the right incentive, the right platform for our government to operate. And so, so I gave them a few ideas. One was we should all take a little notes from the government of Estonia. Because in Estonia, I started something called Draper University, and it's for entrepreneurs from all over the world. They come together, they create new businesses. We give them strange training so that they get set in our weirding ways. And they become entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs with that real verve and determination that it will take to break through a big industry the way Theranos has. So governments, so the Prime Minister of Estonia came out to the Silicon Valley. He spoke at Draper University, and he said, just by instituting digital signatures, we saved 2% of our GDP. And by instituting digital voting, all the young people started to vote. And by using digital identity, the crime rate went down, the business climate went up. And I have here, he gave me the third virtual residency card in Estonia. Well, the software wasn't quite there at this time, but the message was clear. And now the software is there. The digital residency works. And I was able to digitally sign on the equivalent of a blockchain, digitally sign a deal with a company called Funderbeam, which is in Estonia, who is going, their business is going to be to create, in effect, a private market so that you're not stuck with the public markets. And we today, interestingly enough, signed this document digitally and through the Estonian government. Now that is a major breakthrough. Think of all the paperwork, all the other things that I don't have to do because I was able to just sign it right there and get and the contract is done and set in stone, it's done. So we're now good, happy shareholders of Funderbeam. All happened today at whatever it was, 11:14. And that's a really powerful thing. So I went around and I talked to some of the other prime ministers and I said, hey, you see what they're doing? And so what I was doing was thinking, hey, governments now have to compete with each other because if the service continues to be bad and the costs continue to be high, people will leave your country. And if you start providing good service and at a fair price, then people will come to your country. It's just natural supply and demand. And that is the way I believe governments are going to have to operate now. Facebook and Twitter overcame a couple of bad governments in Tunisia and Egypt. Now, Egypt came back with more guns and whatever, but that social media is going to keep taking down bad governments and building up the governments that are doing a really good job attracting us. So that's one of the things I want everybody to think about. Sort of tear down the existing system as much as peacefully and nicely as you can, because we really need to build for the future. And it's a hard thing to tell to a whole group of Europeans, who have such beautiful cities that have all been built there and don't want to change. But you got to change them. And you've got to let people build. And you've got to let entrepreneurs in and let them do their interesting magic and let them try new things and stir the place up. We see that here in the Silicon Valley, and then we see the government starts to see that it's successful, and then they go, hey, what are you doing that's successful? And as they go in, it's a little bit of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. They go in and they mess with it. They think that they're going to help, and they mess with it. But no, you want a platform from which people can grow and try things. And if it doesn't work, sure, then you can think about regulating. But don't even think about regulating anybody until the 80th self-driving flying car crash. Don't try to regulate. Don't make your government do that work. Have the entrepreneur just keep improving it, improving it. And hopefully he doesn't go down with the ship. So I think that's my strongest message, is think in terms of let's allow people to start fresh. Let's allow things to happen. And then if there's failure, failure's okay. Let it be a failure. Let it kind of simmer so people kind of go, oh, okay, we don't want to do that, let's try something new. At Draper University, we have a pledge. They wake up every morning and they start, I will promote freedom at all costs. And then it goes through a long litany of good things to think about. And then one of the lines is, I will fail and fail again until I succeed. And I think, and then the line after that is, I will explore the world with gusto and enthusiasm. So I think if I leave you with something, it is, go out there, allow yourself to do stupid things. Stupid things that were discovering penicillin, discovering electricity, discovering Velcro, peanut butter cups, America. America, we were supposed to be the West Indies. Electricity was a guy out flying a kite who got shocked, and penicillin was a lady feeding moldy bread to patients who had bad infections. I mean, mistakes are important. They provide progress for us. If you want to progress as a society, which I think most of you do, allow mistakes. Any of those countries who say, oh, hey, if you're in debt, so's your son, and so's your grandson, so are your daughters, so are their granddaughters, get rid of that. Don't let debts go on and on and on. Just, have some sort of way of just sort of going, okay, you're bankrupt, start over, go, give it another shot. Maybe you can pay me back some other way. I think we need to be a risk-taking society. We need to create more heroes. We need extraordinary things to happen. And so, and before I forget, if you know any entrepreneurs or are an entrepreneur, we're doing, young entrepreneurs who are just kind of getting their feet on the ground, at Draper University, we're doing a global competition that we haven't announced yet, but we will. And that competition is going to allow entrepreneurs from anywhere to Skype in and pitch us on their billion-dollar ideas. So I think that's going to be kind of fun. So I leave you with the final thoughts, and that is, be willing to fail and fail again and explore the world with gusto and enthusiasm. And treat people well. Have a great day. Thanks so much for having me.